Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the universe, this is RosterWatch. My name is Alex Dunlap. I'm joined by Cody Carpentier. And Cody, we got a bunch to get into today. We have the Ultimate Draft cheat sheets that we're testing maniacally over at RosterWatch.com. Make sure and support us by going over to RosterWatch.com and getting your Ultimate Draft cheat sheets and all your tools that we have available for you there to help you dominate your draft. The Ultimate Draft cheat sheet, of course, the 3 simple rules. An expert quality draft is always guaranteed, but do not break the rules and bastardize our beautiful, magical, mystical, mythical cheat sheet only at RosterWatch.com. All right, Cody, we got news coming in from training camps. We want to get through some of that, and then we want to talk about some of this stuff now that we have the offensive line grades up, where we're going to look at these players' situations at the running back position based on 4 very important variables that we've used our proprietary tools to kind of suss out here. But before we get to that, let's get through it. Let's rapid fire some of the news coming out of training camps today as teams have veterans, I think for all but one team, have officially reported.
Yes, majority of teams have. There's only a couple that have not. The biggest thing I saw today, there was a bevy of news, bevy of notes, as there is every single time camp opens up. The biggest one, we talked about it yesterday on the show, Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton, what that could potentially look like if Najee isn't in this situation and it's just Omarion and how high he could be drafted. Jim Harbaugh went to the podium today and talked about it. He said about Najee Harris, and I quote, "Najee's doing good, progressing. It's better today than yesterday, hopefully better tomorrow than today. He's doing everything in team meetings and, quote, praying for healing." Harbaugh said he doesn't know if he will practice in camp, which means he doesn't know if he will practice basically over the next 3 weeks, which is not great. My initial thoughts are that's not great. Another note that came up around the Chargers was that they signed Naheem Hines to the running back position. So we know they have Jared Patterson, obviously Omarion Hampton. They also have Rocket Sanders from South Carolina. He's a rookie. I think he was a UDFA, big 225-pounder as well, around the Chargers. Some other notes at the running back position. James Cook reports for the Bills, but it remains to be seen if he will be involved in practice or anything. Kyron Williams also reported, could potentially stage a hold in, according to Rap Sheet, but that's not known yet. We've obviously talked about the Kyron Williams thing over the course of the last, 6 months since the combine, it feels like.
It's the Senior Bowl. Whenever Les Snead started talking about it and about what they were going to do as far as getting him extended.
Kicking the can down the road. That's what they're doing.
They're just not going to extend them.
Kyle Shanahan says that Juwan Jennings has not requested a trade from the 49ers. Which,
how about the Brandon Ayuk stuff too?
Brandon Ayuk, GM John Lynch said, "We're not anywhere close to having a concrete timeline for the return of Brandon Ayuk." That feels a little bit coach speaky, but I mean, it's the GM. He's not, I mean, he's probably in the conversations, but concrete time, I don't know what to think about the concrete.
We're not anywhere close to having a concrete timeline. Seems worrisome to me for a guy that was interested in taking Ayuk as a wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5 just to have on my bench.
Does that take you from like week 4 to week 8 in your brain?
Takes me to like week 6.
Okay, so halfway between there. Ricky Pearsall likely to come off the PUP list within the first few days of 49ers training camp. So that kind of gives him, I mean, those are 2 positive things, a positive with a negative. So the negative is Brandon Ayuk. The positive would be Ricky Pearsall there, as well as the Juwan Jennings not requesting a trade. Other things around the league in the fantasy football space, Zach Moss placed on the NFI list. We've talked about this before. We don't think he's going to play football probably ever again in the NFL with that neck injury. The Saints dealing with a 3-headed split.
The whole thing about Zach Moss, I've always, like, whenever a coaching staff or whenever a team or whatever says, like, look, we're not even thinking about the football side of this. We just really hope that he can go on to lead a normal life.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, they're kind of giving you a little bit of a hint there about what their medical staff might have told them about this neck ailment.
And the NFI list tells you exactly that. Speaking of lists, Darren Waller, who returned to the Dolphins, he was put on PUP today. So that obviously means he's physically unable to perform, which means he's not in shape, which is not what you want to hear from a guy that's
it's a non-zero chance he didn't even make the team, dude.
Exactly. That's what an odd spot to be in for the Dolphins right now. They have a lot of needs that they've needed the last 3 years. Adam Schefter reports that Terry McLaurin did not report to Commanders training camp on Tuesday. He's looking for some Garrett Wilson money, it sounds like, but he did not report. And then the Saints, that was the last thing I said, was they evenly rotated their quarterback position between Shuck, Rattler, and Hayner on the first day of camp. Rotation will lean more toward a player per day situation. So the only reason I bring that up isn't because of the quarterback in fantasy football. It's more about Kamara and Olave and getting them the football. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to watch. Personally, I like Tyler Shook, but and then there's also a bunch of like edge defensive tackle conversation. Christian Wilkins, Trey Hendrickson isn't even in Cincinnati. He's spending time in Jacksonville, training, I guess, with his wife. I don't know, but yeah.
Did you see what Michael Penix said about Bijan? I didn't. I don't have the tweet pulled up. Just something along the lines of, man, we're going to give him the ball just as much as we possibly can.
I mean, yes, sure.
It falls into this.
What else? The Jahmyr Gibbs. Did you see the Jahmyr Gibbs thing? I forgot to say that.
What about Gibbs?
They said that. So where did it go? I just read it like within 20 minutes. I forgot about this. They said Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be utilized more out wide this year to be more diverse, or use him in more spaces, obviously, with David Montgomery still on the team. So my first thought was, this is opening up the Christian McCaffrey kind of situation here.
It's also going away from what made – it's also – I mean, I understand it sounds good, right? But it's also a reminder that it's going to be a new offensive guy. To me, dude, what is his name, the new Lions offensive coordinator? I know he was the passing game coordinator for the Broncos last year.
John Morton.
John Morton, right. I had gotten the idea, and I'd gotten the hope in my head that maybe John Morton would be smart enough just not break anything, not to try and bring his own cockamamie ideas into this. And I don't think it's a cockamamie idea to get Jahmyr Gibbs more involved in the receiving game or all the rest. But I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs' role wasn't broken before.
Well, this says Gibbs will be running more split out routes and will be used as a slot receiver in OC John Morton's offense.
It's just a reminder that it's a reminder that this isn't Ben Johnson's offense anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the offensive line. We talk about the offensive line here in a minute with the situations, but they said they believe it'll unlock another aspect of Gibbs's skill set, especially in pass game, where he can create mismatches on defense, which we already know he creates regardless. But
sometimes I just say, man, if you got a good thing going, you don't got to reinvent the wheel, but
don't break it.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us into the running back kind of situational tool I put together here. And what I did was, now that we have our strength of schedule, which again is not fantasy points allowed from last season, that would be useless. It's a proprietary it's a formula that we use that has to do with our scouting grades on the players that are going to be defending against the run, and implied team totals and team win totals on a per game basis, volume of plays the defenses are set to project to allow, things like this, right? And so with our strength of schedule, it's obviously the guys with good strength of schedules is important as far as looking at their situation. We finished the offensive line rankings yesterday. So the offensive line rankings, clearly those are the guys who are going to be blocking for you. Those are going to be the guys who are allowing you to get the yards before contact. It's an important thing to look at when we look at it. So offensive line ranking, another thing that really can say a lot about your situation coming into the season. Average implied team total. We talk about it a lot, but if you just Vegas has put out lines for every single game of the season so far, right? You can go through and you can calculate the implied team total per game. So that's the amount of points that your offense is implied to score based on the spread and the over under. You can take those then and go through the fantasy season and average those together and find out what the average implied team total is for the season, right? And it's a big difference. Like the teams at the very top have implied average team totals on the season for 27 points, whereas like the Browns are like 18 points or something. So we're talking about a touchdown and a 2-point conversion difference per game. It's a big deal. And then the other one is the dome and environmental matrix that we have up at rosterwatch.com, and they're ranking on that. That's just a system where you get points for your dome games. You get points taken away for late season outdoor games, international games, stuff like this, right? So just the best. We want fantasy players playing a lot of games indoors, right? We want that a lot. We don't want teams playing in Cleveland in November. So you get points taken off for that kind of stuff. We don't want teams having to go, like who is it the Vikings this year that have to go 2 international games in a row, Cody?
Back to back, yeah. I think
Just
it's like Germany and Dublin.
We don't want that. So we have them ranked on our system based on that. So strength of schedule, offensive line ranking, average implied team total, and then the environmental / dome / international / late season outdoor matrix. If you take their ranks on all those and average them all in together, the teams that look like they have the best, so the best team situationally based on those metrics alone is the Los Angeles Chargers running back room. Strength of schedule is middling, but it's the 14th best strength of schedule. It's the 8th best offensive line, the 12th best average implied team total, and the 4th best as far as dome game settings / the environmental matrix. Obviously, this comes into important play when we're discussing the Najee Harris stuff. And I think more importantly, when we're discussing the Omari and Hampton stuff, who we had been worried about to begin with, and who I've been coming more and more around on, is saying, look, I was one of the biggest Omari and Hampton guys there was during the draft process. I loved him from start to end. I think he's a complete back. I love him in Dynasty. I don't want to be out on Omari and Hampton in the case that there is some kind of swindle here going on with Najee Harris. So right now, using the Ultimate Draft cheat sheet, we're getting proper exposure to him. We're not getting overexposed because he's expensive right now, right? But you can get him sometimes. I don't want to reach for him, but if he falls to the end of that 4th round, 5th round in 12-team PPR leagues, that's where we're gonna start. If we see value on him based on his current ADP, we're gonna be taking it. And what that ended up with us getting on this last run of over 100 of these, we're talking about 12% exposure, something like that, which is more than you would. It would be 8 1/3% exposure if you just got it just right on along the baseline. So we're getting a little bit more exposure to him than just baseline. Not too much though. I think it's dialed in right. What do you think about the Chargers showing up as number 1 as far as our situational kind of matrix here?
I mean, I sort of disagree with you in the aspect of saying Omari Hampton's overpriced right now. I think with the
It's just
continuation of our Bayesian process, like
right.
What we're getting from Najee on a daily basis the last 3 days from the Chargers is basically telling us Najee's not going to do a damn thing for the next 3 weeks. And they got the best tackle duo in the NFL right now, young duo, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. They brought in Mekhi Becton from that Eagles offense to play right guard. They're playing around with this Bozeman, Zion Johnson thing, center guard. I think they're going to probably end up with Zion back at left guard, which is going to be best case, I think, for everybody. You have a great offensive line that honestly is, they're ranked 8th for us, but they kind of feel like they're a touch low with potential to go up, and they're going to run the hell out of the football. And we've heard positive things about the receivers out there. Like I think with everything coming together here, it just Omarian's going to get. I mean, this is going to be the cheapest we're going to have Omarian for the next month and a half.
Well,
I think it's a fine schedule. Everything else looks great, and it shocked me that they were at the top here. I sort of thought Detroit would be. I kind of wonder, like their offensive line took a step back. Interestingly enough, Detroit at number 4, and I sort of thought they were going to end up number 1. Their offensive line dropped from number 1 to number 4, and it was actually the biggest dropper from last year's rankings to this year because they lost Frank Ragnow. That was obviously the biggest thing there, but I thought Detroit was going to end up being number 1.
Well, and each one of these teams, besides the Chargers, so the Chargers have 2 top 8 metrics, 1 top 12 metric, and 1 metric that's almost top 12. It's top 14, right? Whereas this group of 5 at the very top to kind of separate themselves. And those teams are the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Lions, and the Falcons. Those 5 teams are kind of a tier at the very top, right? But every single one of them has one thing. It's like the Moneyball thing, wherever what that fat guy that's Brandon Bean's analyst. It's the
Jonah
meme.
White or
Yeah,
Not Jonah White, Jonah
Hill, maybe.
Jonah Hill.
Yeah, it's like he's like this guy can do this and this and this. The one thing is like he can't see more than 2 feet in front of him or something. It's like the thing about it is like with these, there's like, all right, so the Cardinals, right, 6th best strength of schedule, the number 1 dome/environmental rank, borderline top 12 in average implied team total. They're number 13, but number 21 in offensive line. Carolina Panthers, number 1 strength of schedule, number 6 offensive line, all number 13 in the dome/environmental rank, but number 24 as far as implied team total. Detroit, it's obvious what it is because they're 4th on the offensive line rankings. They're 3rd on the average implied team total rankings. They're 6th as far as their environments they'll be playing in. But they do have, just personnel-wise and scheme-wise, the worst strength of schedule for opposing running backs. And then Atlanta is the 9th best strength of schedule, the 10th best offensive line, number 5 as far as the dome/environmental stuff, but number 22 as far as average implied team total. Vegas doesn't think they're going to be a team that's going to be scoring points in bunches, but it's those guys at the top. And the good, I mean, I'm interested in all these guys. We've been getting some James Conner in rounds, like round 6 when he presents value there. Chuba Hubbard a little bit earlier, more of a guy that if we can get value on him in the 5th round that I love to get. Jahmyr Gibbs, we all know where he goes. Not getting quite as much David Montgomery in PPR as we might want to. I'd be interested to hear what you think about that. And then, of course, Bijan Robinson. We just talked about him. Bijan Robinson, if you use the cheat sheet, you're going to have a choice with the number 1 overall pick between Jamar Chase and Bijan in PPR. It's just it's a matter of how you want to build. So your thoughts on that? Anything stick out to you as far as these guys in those top 5 teams with the best situations?
The thing that stands out to me is the fact that Bijan and Gibbs are in the top 5. Like that's massive. That's 2 of the top 3 players at the running back position on the Ultimate Draft cheat sheet right now. Like those are the dudes. Saquon's obviously in there. Saquon's a little bit further down this list, tougher strength of schedule and stuff. But I think Bijan and Gibbs being up here just kind of solidifies the fact that this is kind of a checker, right? You got 4 different tools here, and they're all coming together to spit out the fact that Gibbs and Bijan top 5. Like that's big to me. The Chuba Hubbard thing, Carolina Panthers. This is Chuba's backfield. Rico Dowdle's a fine back. I kind of like the Trevor Etienne thought. We'll see what happens through training camp. But the Trevor Etienne thought, like super late in drafts, just kind of as potentially the future second there behind Chuba if anything goes down. But number 6 overall offensive line, number 1 strength of schedule for Chuba Hubbard. Think this offense takes a step forward. I know Matt Kelly thinks this offense takes like 6 steps forward. And
yeah,
he's going to be some potent thing, but this is a big note for them as well. And then the ever sleepy, the ever fadeable James Conner, just right there, number 2. Even that offensive line they got rid of Will Hernandez. Finally, the right tackle position feels like it's going to be a turnstile this year, but as long as they run to the left and keep throwing James Conner the football, Conner looks like he's going to be another value this year in drafts. One more thing I'll just add, though, is Jonathan Taylor, who right off the edge, he's numbered just right outside the top 5, just missed it. Top 5 offensive line, even though they lost the starting center and right guard. The Taylor thing kind of caught my eye, even though because he's like, it's Gibbs, Bijan, Taylor, Detroit, Atlanta, Indianapolis. They're bottom 7 in average implied team total, but they're top 15 in everything else. That was interesting to me. Just seeing studs at the top is something that makes me feel good about it. But man, the biggest takeaway from this running back situation grid is Omari and Hampton. Omari and Hampton might be the league winner, dude.
Yeah. All right. So we could have gone out on that. That's a good take, but I did want to talk about some of the guys in bad spots and whether you're worried. So there's a tier here that starts with the bottom 4 situational ones. I think that, so, and those teams are New England, Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Miami. And of those teams, New England's the only one that has anything that's like looks good or looks blue on this matrix. And I think I'm going to put this matrix up on the site. I'm gonna have Bruce put it up. I think it's helpful. But so they have the 28th offensive line rank, 23rd in average implied team total, 29th as far as game environments, 12th though as far as strength of schedule, just for personnel and scheme that they'll be facing. I kind of think that with the bad offensive line and all the rest of this stuff, I just don't think it hurts Travion Henderson as much as it hurts Ramondre Stevenson, a guy that can be used as an extension of the run game via the pass and all the rest of it. These other three really do kind of worry me a little bit. Pittsburgh with Caleb Johnson, of course, Jalen Warren, number 23 strength of schedule, number 19 O-line, number 26 in the average implied team total, number 27 as far as their game environments. Seattle, so Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, second to last. Number 24 in strength of schedule, number 30 in offensive line rank, which I think we talked about this yesterday, I think that offensive line has room to grow into something better, but still starting out, we can't just give them the benefit of the doubt because there's some of these players that they drafted who we kind of like. Number 20 in average implied team total, number 22 as far as game environments. And then in the very end is Devon Achane, who I was interested in drafting at like the 1-2 turn. 25th in strength of schedule, second to last in offensive line, number 16 in average implied team total. That's their best metric is number 16. So their best metric is right in the smack in the middle. Number 26th in game environments. Does this worry you at all about Kenneth Walker, Devon Achane, or Caleb Johnson? To me, it's almost the most worrisome about Caleb Johnson because I don't know how much he'll be used as a receiver. Whereas I know Kenneth Walker and Devon Achane will if those running lanes are clogged up or if these game scripts get flipped all sideways on them.
Yeah. The Seattle-Miami thing at the bottom makes sense based on the offensive line rankings, 2 of the bottom 3 offensive lines. Achane, I feel like Achane's potentially a different enough animal at the running back position with his dynamism and ability just to kind of create with the blink of an eye, that he could potentially battle through this horrific situation. Ken Walker in Seattle, this offensive line really needs to take a step forward to do anything and kind of cohesively come together. But I'm worried. I'm just worried about the overall offensive function of Ken Darnold. Just is there going to be any glue to this offense to keep the whole thing together? Because obviously we know Darnold with any pressure, we saw it last year twice against Detroit and twice against the Rams. Any pressure can make him fall apart and fold, and that'll nuke the run game in itself. The Caleb Johnson thing, I just did a video. We're starting to do some shorter videos on the RosterWatch YouTube channel. You guys got to go check those out. They're right there on the homepage there. Little 5 to 8 minute videos. I did one on Caleb this morning, and before seeing this, I like the offensive line. I think that's one thing. I just went in here and I kind of like predicted. I go, all right, well, what if the offensive line, performed at an exceedingly level? Like I think moving Broderick Jones over to left tackle, they get Troy Fautanu back, who they drafted a year ago in the first round. Isaac Siamalo's at left guard, coming off a Pro Bowl season. Mason McCormick, a 6th rounder, and Zach Frazier, one of the biggest risers at the offensive line position, going through grades this year. The center from West Virginia. This is a really good young offensive line, and I was like, what if I just said this Pittsburgh offensive line exceedingly performs, and they become, by the end of the year, looked at as a top 5, 6, 7 offensive line? Caleb Johnson is still nuked. He's still bottom 7 in this whole metric, even if the Pittsburgh offensive line performs at a top 5, top 6 level. That worries me a lot because I think that this offense is going to run through Caleb. Like, you obviously have a 40-year-old quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, but as far as weapons go, it's like this thing you need to have a run game. You need to be able to establish it. And I guess they could just force it. I mean, it is what it is, but I still think the price on Caleb is fine. So I'm a little less worried about Caleb than I would be about Ken or Devon Achane. Achane, it feels a little rich, but I think you got like a wild card there. Achane just feels like a wild card to me. He's always felt that way. And I know we have to get a little bit of him, but I think this just clarifies that we should not get too much Devon Achane.
Yeah, because the one thing that you don't want in fantasy football is running backs that can go off for 50 balls any given week, right?
This is is Anthony Richardson, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to Roster Watch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to RosterWatch.